And the other major project is the Learning by Doing project. So that was funded by the New South Wales Department of Education at the beginning of 2020. Again, it's working with schools. So we thankfully had a 1-year extension, thank goodness. And really what we're trying to do is to work to embed citizen science as part of the curriculum in New South Wales, both for secondary and primary students, because we think that getting young people involved in science is perhaps the key to making them more interested in science, because I think there's a really strong disconnect between what scientists do and how we teach it in schools. And hopefully that could lead to more representation in science too, because I think that cuts a few people off. So I have put a few things together here, and I'm not just talking about my own case study because I thought I would introduce citizen science to those of you who've not come across it. So here's one definition from the Australian Citizen Science Association, essentially involving the public in collaborative scientific research with the aim of increasing scientific knowledge. But as we've already talked about on our table, we can think about citizen science happening in a top-down or bottom-up approach. And really, a lot of the projects that I've started with have been top-down because we've been designing the projects here at the university. And my personal experience, it's fantastic to hear the presentation beforehand, is that I think I needed to do that so that now I can get better at being a co-designer, because I wouldn't have really known where to start. But perhaps I'm wrong. That's just my perspective. And I thought I'd share some work by two great scholars in citizen science, Bonnie and Hackley here. So on the left, we have a sort of trajectory of different types of engagement in citizen science, starting from contributory projects where citizens are really submitting data, moving to collaborative where they're maybe more involved in analysis, and then truly co-created projects. Yes, of course, sorry. And then I've shown Hackley's model here. I won't go into great detail, but I thought some of you might be interested in this. It's sort of a more expansive version of this model for me. So it really, and I like the term extreme citizen science, where members of the public are designing those projects, but really there's a possibility to participate at different levels. And I think Hackley describes this beautifully with an elevator model. And one of the things that he put forward in a blog and in subsequent publications is that perhaps we need to encourage people to be able to move up and down this escalator at different stages in their life, depending on their interest, their time, whether they have caring responsibilities, whether they're particularly busy at work, and to move between these levels to have different levels of engagement. And these percentages are based on the UK population, just the ones on the right here, that sort of take an estimate based on some data of the percentage of the population involved at different levels based in different projects. So I can speak more about that in the breaks perhaps, and you might want to have a look at this blog too. But can I have the next one? Thanks, Leanne. So in thinking about some of the major challenges and some of the things that we maybe need to do as academics and with the community, the biggest one I can always think about is listening. The actual time to go and find out what problems are faced by members of the community and what problems they would like to solve in order to really co-create things. And sometimes we come from a top-down perspective because we don't do enough listening. We don't have enough chance to collaborate or to communicate with the community. And I think this is going to become very, very important. You know, we hear a lot of discussions about the lecture and whether the lecture is dead. I think, you know, even in education, we maybe need to start thinking about co-creating lectures together or co-creating teaching. And I know many of you already do this, but I've seen some great examples of students editing lectures during class on Google Slides and things like that. Some things I'd like to explore a little bit more. So some of the impacts here. So this is an impact from our own research. We're working with undergraduate students. And this is one of the students saying that they really understood a lot more about how long it takes to find a new medicine, a bit more of this appreciation of the drug discovery process. So this is just something from our own work in chemistry, but I thought I'd share a couple more if that's okay. So this is from a project eBird. Citizen science is probably best known for its work in ecology and in environment. And this is pretty outstanding, these stats here. So in less than 20 years, because this was a paper from 2021, over 600,000 birders had contributed 51 million complete bird checks of over 10,000 species. And here, if you're interested in papers, I know we sometimes look at these as one of the only metrics at the uni, and perhaps we shouldn't, but hundreds of papers have been published using this data, and almost 100 in 2020 alone. So the next one, so this is an example of citizen science coming from the bottom up. So these are the Flint residents who are involved in detecting their own, doing their own science to prove that their water supply was contaminated. So you can see an application here for social justice and importance of citizen science in the community, and listening as a researcher to know if you can help with any measurements and making sure that the science is rigorous. And a final one that I'd share, I write an article every month, a column for Chemistry World magazine. And one of my favorite articles that I wrote in recent years was featured this fantastic citizen scientist, and actually a scientist, Dr. Cliff Capano, who's a native Hawaiian man, an avid and brilliant surfer. And he combined his two main interests, not many, in surfing and science, and started collecting information on the microbiome of surfers around the world to understand more about their gut and the organisms living within inside the stomachs of surfers. So these are just some impacts. That the impacts can be very wide-reaching, and I'll finish there because I don't want to go over too much. But I think citizen science has a really important place to play in co-design. It's really good to be here this morning. Thank you.
Very much, Alice. That was a wonderful presentation. And again, a different perspective, a different contextual perspective. Now, I'd like to welcome Elaine Huber up now. Elaine, Associate Professor Elaine Huber. She is the director of the, let me get this right, the Business Co-Design team. And I'll pop up your slides.
Okay, I've put up a definition. So you've heard from two speakers that are quite different. I think I'm going to talk to you a little bit of a different idea of what co-design might mean. And this is my favorite quote of, or definition, if you like. And this is really relates to the work that we do in our team and what I'm going to talk to you about today. So yes, we are a team of, we're called the Business Co-Design Team, or BCD for short. And the coloured parts of this diagram are the different roles of the people in our team. So we are a mix of academic staff and professional staff. And we also obviously work with our co-design partners down the bottom here. Our students, of course, our academic our unit coordinators, who are, we call them our discipline experts. And we really try to get industry involved in the work that we do through, particularly through our alumni. So they've been students and they've experienced it, they've gone out into the workplace and they can really feed back well. So yeah, we're a multidisciplinary team, I like to say, and we're constantly growing and changing. So just a little bit of context around what we do. So I've got this little logo, if you like, down the bottom here, class, and it's called, so we're actually running a strategic project called Connected Learning at Scale. It's a class. And so when we first started this project, so it's funded by the VC, we work in the business school. So we are working with these large cohorts. And when I talk to people about large cohorts, they say, oh, I've got a large cohort, 300 students. And I say, well, actually, we have cohorts of 2,500 students in one class. So they're not all of our classes are that big. There are jumbo classes, but we do lots and lots of classes of over 1,000 students. And really what we're trying to do in this project is look at what are the issues at scale and what can we do to solve some of the issues or co-design solutions to these issues. So it is a complex project with lots of different people involved. but we're about 2.5 years in. When we first started, our unit was called Educational Innovation in Business, or EIB, because we all love acronyms at university. And we decided that we wanted to change our name. So we talked about what it is that we do and what we wanted to achieve. And we decided to call ourselves Co-Design in Business. And then all of a sudden, since then, the word co-design has become really prominent in lots of different fields, and we've become involved with the policy lab and really learned a lot from many different ways and starting to think about how we can do co-design better. Here we go. So the co-design process that we go through, I'll just talk you through it in a little bit of detail, but we start off with this thing called Connect In. Or it's basically a workshop, and it might start off something like this with lots of posters around the room. Actually, this is the pre-COVID Connect-In workshop. During COVID, we did all this fully online, but we've got our different stakeholder groups. So we've got our teaching teams, we've got our alumni or our industry partners, we've got our students, and we've also got our own BCD team. And really, it's an opportunity for that blue sky thinking, that unrestricted ideation, brainstorming. And from there, then we go into a sort of a scoping process. So, you know, listening to what Alice was saying about listening. So this is an opportunity for us to listen for ideas, and really, you know, say to the students, well, and the staff, if you could do anything you wanted, what would it look like? So we also build in evaluation right from the beginning. So once we've decided what it is we're going to change in the units, then we will think about, well, what would success look like if we made those changes, and then develop a evaluation plan around that. And then we go through a few cycles of this work, and I'll talk to that on the next slide. And of course, there's always reporting. There's always sort of, you know, that dissemination of the work and what's worked and what hasn't worked. Okay, so this is our sort of our cycle of approach. So the C for the connected, because we're doing connected learning. And it's really, we came up with, there's lots of terminology out there. What we do is very much sort of what we would call action research, but our outputs are design patterns. So we are following a sort of design-based research approach, and it's got these sort of 5 distinct steps, if you like. The exploration is that connect-in workshop that we start with. Then we do sort of a series of planning, design meetings, talking about, you know, really scoping what we're going to do. Then we might build, we might test some new technologies, we might make some changes in Canvas, for example. Then obviously we launch the unit. It's taught throughout the semester, so we go through the implementation stage, and then we've got the evaluation plan that we made at the start, and we collect data, we reflect as a team, and we build that into the next cycle. So we usually work with people for 3 cycles. We would love to keep going, and usually our co-design partners, sometimes it takes a while to get them. The first cycle might be a little bit tricky sometimes. Some people jump straight in and off they go, but sometimes it takes a whole cycle to really, they want to see the benefits, they want to see the changes before they fully commit. So we do try and work with them on 3 cycles. Obviously, that's resource heavy and time and money dependent, but that is our utopia. And then, wrong direction. The last thing I just wanted to talk a little bit about was, so I asked the team, I've got a few members of the team in the room scattered. I'm sure there's one of them on each of your tables, so you'll get a chance to ask them more questions about this. But I asked them, it's not easy. Co-design is not straightforward. You know, on paper it sounds great, but actually in practice it's hard work. And so I asked them to tell me what they felt was the hardest thing. And these were some of the things that they said. And that last one is really, I guess, from me as the sort of leader of the team and the group. I really feel like co-design, it is a mindset. It's about changing the way you work and the way you think and the way you usually do things. And people who have got that growth mindset or are willing to change, they just love it and they would never go back to doing it any other way. But it really is a bit of a journey, and to get that mindset moving. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to say thank you. This is my team. It's pretty big. And of course, there's all the other people that we work with. These are just the BCD team. And I just wanted to say a huge thank you to them. Thank you. And you.